Our first speaker tonight is Senator Kamala Harris.
Good evening. Thank you, Ted. I want to first just thank you all. You know, we have all been active for many years, and I absolutely believe that local government and local leaders are where it's at, and you are the foundation for everything else that comes. And so I want to start by thanking the Story County Democrats for your activism, for the leadership that you provide, because truly what you do at this level is a bedrock of what we do anywhere else. So congratulations for all the success, and thank you, and I'm honored to be here, and Jan Bauer in particular, I want to thank you, and Maddie, and all of the Story County Democrats for the work you do, and Governor Hickenlooper and Secretary Castro, I thank you as well for the leadership you have given our country. So my name is Kamala Harris. I'm running for President of the United States. And I announced my campaign about 4 weeks ago in my hometown of Oakland, California, and a lot of people have been asking me over the course of the last few weeks, why are you running? And I'll condense the answer, but essentially it is because I believe that it is time to restore opportunity for all people in America. I believe it is time to restore truth and justice, how about that, in America? And essentially, when it comes down to it, my sister Maya is here, and she and I were raised by a mother who, you'd come home complaining about stuff, and the first thing she'd say to you is, well, what are you going to do about it? So I decided to run for president. When we talk about what's at stake, I think we all know that we are at an inflection point in the history of our country. This is a moment in time that is requiring us all, collectively and individually, to look in a mirror and ask a question, and that question is, who are we? And I think what we all know is that we are better than this. Right. And this is a moment that is requiring us to fight for the best of who we are, and so fight we will. And this is a fight, though, that is born out of optimism. Knowing who we are, knowing what we can be, unburdened by what we have been. Knowing we are a nation that was founded on noble ideals, those ideals that were present when we wrote the Constitution of the United States and all of its amendments and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. The noble ideals that were behind those words we spoke in 1776, that we are all and should be treated as equals. This is a moment in time that is requiring us to fight for the best of who we are. And part of our nature as a country is we have always been aspirational. We have always been aspirational. Our strength is that we reach for those goals and those ideals. We are also, Story County Democrats, clear-eyed that we've not quite met those ideals. But the strength of who we are is we fight to reach those. And so this is that moment in time. And when I talk about the importance of restoring truth and justice, I think about it in the context of many things. As you may know, my background is, first of all, my parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement in Berkeley and Oakland, California in the 1960s. My sister Maya, who's here, she and I joke that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full-time marching and shouting about this thing called justice. In fact, that's why I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I was inspired by Thurgood Marshall and a group of others who understood the skill of the profession of law to translate the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country and do that work of reminding people of the promise of who we are. And so when I look at where we are now, this is a moment that is requiring us to fight for justice and fight for truth. And justice, let's think about that in terms of what has been happening in the last 2 years. It is not reflective of justice and equality for all, and understanding the importance of seeing all individuals as being equal and entitled to equal attention and priority. When we pass a tax bill that is about benefiting the top 1% and big corporations of America, when we know we are a country where the middle class and working families are struggling to meet their obligations every month. Let's think about it in the context of where we are with our economy, and recognize that the economy of America today is not working for working people. And we know it to be true. We know that in our country today, for almost half of the families, they cannot afford a $400 unexpected expense. A $400 unexpected expense, which could be the car breaking down, a medical bill we didn't foresee, can topple and upend a family. That does not represent economic justice in America today. Let's look at further information that tells us this to be true. In America today, in 99% of the counties in our country, if you are a minimum wage worker who works full-time, you cannot afford market rate for a one-bedroom apartment. That does not represent justice in America today. Let's talk about concepts of justice and what we have recently seen. When we see an administration that had a policy of taking children from their mothers and fathers at the border and daring to call it border security when in fact it was a human rights abuse. That is not reflective of justice in America. Let's talk about justice for America and understand that part of what we should all expect is that our children can leave home in the morning and we can send them off, knowing that they are guaranteed certain confidence about their safety. But yet we live in an America today where the people in the United States Congress do not have the courage to pass smart gun safety laws and instead are in the pocket of folks who are selling us a false choice in suggesting you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. This does not represent justice in America. And let's talk about speaking truths. And why is that important? Well, it's obvious we were raised to speak truth, but it's important for another reason. Right now in our country, there are a lot of folks who are rightly distrustful of their government and its institutions and leaders. And we must take that seriously and understand that the nature of a relationship of trust, we know it in our personal and professional lives, the nature of a relationship of trust is such that it is a reciprocal relationship. We give and we receive trust. And one of the most important ingredients in trust is truth. But there's a funny thing about truth. For those of us who stand behind these podiums with microphones in front of us, there is an incentive sometimes that we will speak and everyone will clap because they will feel lovely, because we will have said something to make feel lovely, and we'll sprinkle lovely dust all over the room, and then we'll walk away and job done. Speaking truth doesn't always accomplish that goal. But here's the other thing about speaking truth. People may walk away from that conversation thinking, you know, I didn't particularly like what I had to hear. But they'll also walk away from that conversation knowing it was an honest conversation. It's time we speak truths, uncomfortable though they may be in this country. So let's speak those truths. Let's speak the truth about the fact that we are not right now having an economy that works for working people. Let's speak the truth right now that climate change is presenting an existential threat to who we are as human beings. And that we cannot afford any longer to have leadership that would have us buy science fiction instead of science fact. This is a truth. Let's speak the truths in our country that we know to be real. Let's speak the truth that we pretend to be a society that cares about education, but not so much the education of other people's children. Let's speak that truth. Let's speak that truth in the context of the fact that instead of putting money into our public education system, instead of putting the money into the value that we should give teachers, understanding that besides us as parents, they are helping to raise our children, instead of putting resources into public schools where public teachers have to instead come out of their own pocket to pay for school supplies, and sometimes I've met teachers who work 2 jobs, maybe even 3 to pay the bills. And instead of doing that, we are investing in a system of mass incarceration in this country. Let's speak that truth. Let's speak the truth that it is not reflective of who we want to be as a country and who we are. When a mother or a father in America today, when their son turns 12 years old, will have to sit down with that child and have what's called the talk. And explain to that child that as he grows older, and even now, he may be stopped, he may be arrested, he may be chased, he may be shot based on the color of his skin. Let's speak that truth as well. Let's speak the truth that we are a nation of immigrants. And that we will not buy a president's vanity project over the importance of supporting federal workers and people who have taken on responsibility of doing the noble work of public service. And we must have an administration and a country that understands that we cannot play politics with public safety or with people's lives. And the final truth I would offer, among the many others, but we only have so much time, but one that I think is critically important for us to speak, especially as Democrats at this moment in time, is a critical truth that is being lost in some ways by those powerful voices, and they're trying to distract us from this truth. Those powerful voices that right now in our country are trying to sow hate and division among us. And the most critical truth then that we must own and hold in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls is the truth that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. We have got to speak that truth. And it is a truth that I know based on every experience I've had. It's a truth that I think of around the concept and in the fact of what I call the middle of the night thought. Some people refer to it as the 3 in the morning thought. Other people refer to it as the witching hour. You know what I'm talking about, right? When we wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes in a cold sweat, with that thing that's been weighing on us. Well, for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of the party with which we're registered to vote. When we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of some demographic a pollster put us in. And for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it has to do with one of just a very few things. Our personal health, the health of our children or our parents. For so many Americans, can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month, retire with dignity? For so many families, can I get my relative off of his opioid addiction? For our students, can I pay off those student loans? The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And so my final point is this. Let's go into 2020 with optimism in our hearts, knowing we are better than this, knowing that we are prepared to fight for the best of who we are, knowing our strength, knowing our potential, knowing that we can see, because we have the ability to see what we can be, unburdened by what we have recently been. And let's go into this knowing not only are we better than this, but we are going to win. Thank you.